welcome to the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schuknecht, and today's guest is Susan Hensley, the author of Art for Your Sanity. This should be fun. Let's get into it. Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I would love to start out with just having you introduce yourself, if you would.
Sure. Well, first of all, hi, Kelly, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I love the focus of your podcast. So, I am a new author. Book came out this summer called Art for Your Sanity, and the subtitle is How Art Journaling Can Help You Manage Chaos and Unleash Joy. And the short story is I'd always said I would never write a book. I had a first career as a journalist. And coming out of that, it's like, no, I will never write a book, and certainly not a personal story. And then I spent about 2 decades in HR as a coach and facilitator, and I had all these great tools. And then I discovered art journaling and quite honestly felt compelled to write a book to share it with the world. So I laugh when I say now, I laugh at myself, I should be clear, when I say, I am an author, because I always said I did not want to be one.
So something drew you to get that message out. So I love the topic of this. I like to journal, and also always get stuck on what to do, because I follow the miracle morning practice, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but part of it includes journaling. And so I always feel like I should be doing this. And so I've tried different things. I did bullet journaling. I read the book Bullet Journal, and I did that for, I don't know, a couple of years, and finally just let it go, because I was like going through the motions of just like putting stuff in there, but it wasn't feeling like I was really practicing journaling. So my first question for you is, what is art journaling exactly?
Sure. Well, I love the question because it's not intuitive for folks. Pretty much everyone's heard of journaling, and I appreciate you sharing your story, because one of the reasons I did feel compelled to share the power of art journaling is there's a lot of different avenues to tapping into ourselves. And not every avenue works for every person, right? We're all different, and different things resonate with us. And I'll share that I've been a lifelong journaler, and I enjoy it. I still do written journals, and I like the concept of morning pages and just sort of that free.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened about 6, 7 years ago is, and I always viewed myself as not a particularly creative person, right? Journalism is a lot of sort of rules and structure, although it can be creative the way you write. And then my corporate career also had a lot of guardrails. I sort of identified myself as a person who likes a certain amount of guardrails, and a little on the type A side. And that's okay, right? And you can embrace that and still look for balance. So I was at work, and one of my colleagues had really taken up art several years before and had real talent. I've still described myself as not an artist. This art journaling is not about producing art. It's all process. So let's be just really clear. Um, and she invited us to our house to teach us a little bit about art. It's like, okay. So we went, and there was some paints. There were maybe 5 or 6 of us on a rainy Saturday. And she was explaining the color wheel, and I was playing with some paints and managed to make like a brown mess because I was not patient, because my type A personality. And that's what happens, apparently. I've since been told when impatient people play with paints is you end up with brown because you don't let it dry. But I loved my brown mess. And I had so much fun. And in my coaching practice, I routinely ask people to keep like a little joy diary, just keep like a little notepad with them. And anytime they do something that brings them some joy, it can be a walk, it can be very small things, to capture it and to really think about how to maybe do more of that. And I loved this painting. I actually took that sort of soggy piece of paper home. I hung it on my refrigerator. My family's like, huh, what the heck? It didn't matter. I was my own sort of proud parent, right? And so I started following just playing with art using crayons and very inexpensive art materials. And I still use the children's art materials. I've never spent more than a few dollars on any of these things. And I did that for a number of years. And what I found is the messages I was getting and what my art journal became to me was really much more powerful. And I still written journal than I'd ever gotten from written journaling or a lot of other avenues. I meditate, I've worked with therapists. I've been really fortunate to have all these different tools. And art journaling was fun. It ended up opening up my creativity and really helped me get a lot more self-compassion. So then I did a bunch of research as to why. I got really curious, and there's great research out there. It's not like I have, this is not rocket science. And it was all about moving from my left, really judgmental brain and very discerning and list making to that right side through an avenue of play, quite honestly, and
Mm-hmm.
curiosity. So that's a little bit of the long story of what art journaling is and how I sort of came about. But because it really is just plain 10 minutes a day, similar to how you might do morning pages, but with color or collage or whatever you have that sort of sparks that bit of joy.
Okay, you know what I hate about morning pages, and I'm gonna I want to explain what morning pages is for people who don't know. So I like morning pages. I'll be clear about that. I like morning pages, but so morning pages is taking you know this, but for listeners, is writing 3 pages, just in the morning. You just start with like just whatever is coming to your brain, and you don't worry about grammar or spelling or anything. You just go for it, and your mind, like things come to your mind and you just get it out on paper. So I like that practice actually, and I've learned that when I do it, that in some way it helps me think through things that I don't even realize are in my brain, and like later I can think more clearly about those things that were like stuck in there somewhere, I guess. The one thing I hate though is I cannot handwrite. Like by the end of my third page my hand is like so like sore. I'm like, oh, I hate this. I kind of think like if I do it more often, maybe my hand would get used to writing again, because we don't do that anymore. Anyway, so morning pages is that. But so I want to talk about that that creativity piece, because I feel like I'm similar to you in like, I wouldn't call myself type A, but just like not super creative, artsy, whatever, right? And so bullet journaling is another practice that is great for, it's really great for people who are creative, because you can get really creative with the things that you can put on the pages. And I love seeing people's bullet journals. And also, I am not creative in that way. So mine was just like very, very basic. I don't have like the beautiful bullet journal pages. So the art journaling, I'm just curious, like for people who are maybe not, again, like not artsy, like how do you get over the like that, to do it where you're like, to get over like making it look beautiful and just be like the lean into the creativity.
Yeah. So I love the question because that's the first step. And it starts, I try and ask people to start with the sense of play. And when I do workshops and I've got online training, one of the exercises I start people with, and I suggest this obviously in the book, is grab 2 crayons, set your phone timer for 3 minutes, put on like a favorite song. Most songs are 3 minutes, I've discovered too, because I've done this exercise in
Mm-hmm.
workshops, and it's sort of amazing to me. Obviously, there's some magic, and you're just going to fill a page. You're not drawing one thing in 3 minutes. You're going to fill that page with color from those 2 crayons, however you want. And what that exercise does is it sparks play. Because I can say to you, no, you just play, and you play without judgment. Like little kids don't go out to play with a goal, or even with, I'm going to get better and better and better each day that I play, right? It depends on there may be something eventually they practice. I also find as adults, it is very hard to take ourselves seriously holding a crayon or like a big Elmer's glue stick, right? It's just when we do the things from childhood, between probably about the ages of 4 to 8. There's studies that show by about age 8 or 9, many of us get messages that we are not like creative, or our art is not great, or we can't sing, or we're not music, whatever it is, that really sets in by that age. So I
Mm-hmm.
ask people to really tap into that inner child artist who just enjoyed scribbling or doodling, drawing flowers, cats. People draw all sorts of things, mountains, sunshine, clouds, rain, right? We all sort of had a go-to thing as a little kid that we thought was fun to draw, stick figures, smiley faces, right? So many people draw hearts. It's great, right? These are simple things that as a child you had the motor skills to draw. So I like to suggest people start there. That's where I started, quite honestly. All these years later, I still go there. I have used my art journal as a place to play with color and emotions versus, and once again, it's process versus trying to create any greater skill. And in the book, so not only did I say I wouldn't write a personal book talking about like how this helped me with anxiety and major life transitions and
Mm-hmm.
listening to my inner soul, all of which is in the book. But I realized if I didn't show my image, which are extremely childlike collages, and I mean, I really have not evolved from my 5-year-old artist by intention, people would think there was a high barrier. It's similar to how I say, please do not, if you want to try this, do not buy expensive. And by
Mm-hmm.
expensive, I mean more than $5, because the minute you spend any real money, that inner critic just fires up about like waste. So
Hmm.
it really all starts in a place of play.
Got it. Well, so what for you, you mentioned I never wanted to write a book. I never wanted to be an author. Um, so what for you was your beyond the bestseller moment? It wasn't about becoming a bestseller or selling a million copies, but what drew you to write this book if that wasn't something that was always kind of drawing you in that direction?
Yeah, it really got to the point because my art journal helped me discover that I needed a career change, and I was really, really burned out and had a lot of images in it. It's where I think the real power of the art journal is that it really starts to become a mirror to your soul or inner wisdom that you may not want to recognize. Because my left brain's like, if I quit my job, what will I do? I'll go crazy. I have a lot of helpful people who love me and support me who are like, you have too much energy. You can't just quit without a plan. But if you're burned out and you're working like crazy, you can't come up with a really good plan, right? And so you needed that space. And it was really the art journal that allowed me that space and confidence to sort of jump off the proverbial cliff. And I had lots of collage pictures of people standing on the edge, if you will. Um, so it was about a year after I had left my job, and I recognized I was talking with someone how often I would suggest art journaling because I was still doing a lot of executive coaching, part time and with other clients as a way to process emotions, to have some play, stress relief, all of the brain thing. And someone said, you should write a book. And I thought, I can't, I don't want to because, I have all these rules, my master's degrees in journalism about writing, right? I had gotten very left brain about writing and certainly writing anything deeply personal. And then I really caught myself and I thought, I talk about it when I work with people. I believe in it. I don't think it's for everyone, but I don't think any tool's for everyone. And what I really like about it is it's no barrier, right? I still do about 10 minutes a day, and I still use very inexpensive um, tools, and I still love it, and it still sparks joy. And I'm also a coach in a life transition coach, and it's so helpful to have a creative outlet and play for people that it dawned on me that I wanted to be of more service and here I had this, And the best way I knew to really share it was by writing a book. And so I sort of had to get on my own way. It was a lot though. And there were moments as I was doing it where I didn't know I'd ever publish it, right? I actually got it written pretty easily because it's a very short book and with pictures. I joke. And at first it caused me distress that it was short. And I was talking to someone, they said, well, with your journalism background, you're taught not to write, just to write, right? It's all about. And one of the things that was really, and so I felt very vulnerable in that. And yet it just felt like it's easy to explain. I was able to go through play and curiosity and the safe container it becomes for difficult emotions and tapping into inner wisdom and with a series of stories and brain science. And once I sort of thought, I'm trying to share, and it's best to share in a short way. I haven't had anyone ever say, I wish that book was longer in most cases, right? I mean, most time people will say about a book or a
Right.
movie, oh, it was a little long. So there was a big journey of getting out of my own way and recognizing that it was just something I wanted to share and that what I had created once again shared it. And so in publishing and going out for reviews on NetGalley and some of the those review sites, it was so interesting how my biggest fears about what someone might say, the reviewers, and these are people I don't know, and I've never, shared these reviews, actually saw it as strengths. And it
Hmm.
was so I guess validating. I didn't realize how much I needed that validation, but getting some
Hmm.
early reviews and feedback that one of my favorites is I love this book because it's just the right length. I read it at night and started art journaling the next morning. And it was like,
Sure.
okay. There was another that's like, I love the fact that she doesn't have any artistic training or an artist view because it makes art playing with art approachable for people who don't define themselves as that. And so if you think of those vulnerable points that you get so afraid of and putting a work out into the world,
Yeah.
I just particularly loved the fact that some of these reviewers saw those as actual strengths.
Right. Yeah. Well, so there's a woman in my author power circle, which is a community for women who are writing a book, who is dealing with that same, maybe like insecurity over her book that it's short, right? But she got her message out. That is the message of her book. And we've been talking about that a lot the last few weeks, that it's okay. There's books that are all different, lengths. There's some very popular, well-known books that are very short, so
Yes.
your book doesn't have to be long. There's also books that are long for the sake of hitting a page count, right? That just are maddening because you're just, it's like you're not saying anything more. You're over
Mhm.
this over and over and over again. So, it is better in my opinion, it is better to get your point across, especially, the type of book that you have. People don't want to read 200, 500 pages on journaling. Like, get to the point, tell me
Yeah.
how to do this and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love what the book is. I definitely want to check this out. I like I said, I've been looking for the right approach to journaling for me. The Just the word art like makes me nervous because I'm like, I don't know if this is the right approach for me, but I'm willing to try things because it's with the miracle morning, a lot of times I feel like I'm failing miracle morning because I'm not doing like every single thing exactly like you're supposed to. And I'm actually starting to think about creating my own version of miracle morning that's like, you know what? I'm going to lean into things that like are serving me and the things that are not. Like, well, whatever. Visualization is one of them. And every morning I'm like, how do I spend any time like visual? I don't know. Like but you can like combine the journaling and visualization. And, there's different ways to approach it. I think that will make me feel like I'm succeeding instead of, just checking off a box. Anyway, so I definitely want to check that out. Well, I want to talk about, I want to shift from that though, to talking about your writing and publishing process. So when you wrote this book, how did you how, so you knew you wanted to write it. How did you tackle that writing process? What was your just like your routine, or how did you just kind of sit down and create those steps for getting that book, putting that book together?
Sure. I have found for me, and I think honoring what works for us, like in your story, you need to journal in a way that works for you. Because the
Yeah.
minute you're just doing something for the should. So I'd started to
Hmm.
read different things, and I recognized that was starting to get into my head. And so what I told myself is, because I do journal in the morning, I would get up, open my laptop so I wouldn't handwrite it, and I would write and write in a series of essays. Because of the journalism background, it made more sense for me to write like a short segment on a topic that intrigued me. So I did a brainstorm of components around art journaling. I wasn't able at that point to get a hook or an outline, and I know most people really want you to start there. I could not start there. That was not working for me.
Yeah.
But I had a list of topics of how art journaling worked, and I just told myself I wouldn't reread them. Every morning I would get up and I would just write one. Sometimes it would take me 10 minutes, sometimes 30. So I didn't fix grammar. I didn't try and make it lead. I didn't do anything other than get a thought about something, right? Whether it was bullying or, inner wisdom, whatever it was. I had this very disparate list of topics, which art journaling tied for me. So I did that for 30 days. And that was my
Okay.
promise to myself. And I just put it on a folder in my laptop. And at the end of 30 days, I would sort of see what I had. At that point, I'd started to try and find podcasts. I wish I'd found yours at the time. Well, and different resources about, okay, now what? Now that I know I want to write something. And so I started to follow some breadcrumbs and ended up with some resources. And I chose to self-publish because of my age and what the book is, and I'm using it with the coaching and training practice, right? It was the start of something new. And although I love the the book, I could see that it could also turn into to more. So I found a company that was a really good fit for me. I've now since found others, but it's interesting when you're sort of searching, and then worked back. The other thing I felt really strongly about, because of, and I liked the self-publishing for this, is a lot of the concepts of commercializing the book. It was always still mine. Like the research had come back, I should have a different title originally, and that title just didn't feel right. And it's like, no, this is my first foray into writing, and I loved it. And I really wanted it to be something that I felt was a reflection. And doing the self-publishing really allowed me to fully be part of that creative journey, and to feel like,
Mhm.
because I wasn't right. I mean, I love the title of your podcast. I didn't have aspirations of, tens of thousands of copies sold. Right? I mean, is that fun? Of course. And the book's
Sure.
actually done much better than I ever thought it would. That's been the shocking, shocking. Yeah, I didn't know what to think,
Sure.
right? You
Yeah.
have all these fears, and I've been really happy. I don't know if I will ever write another book, but I've been really happy that for this first one, it was what the book I wanted to write. And although I felt so vulnerable by its length, and then vulnerable about, is anyone going to understand this? And it was really, those stages were really hard for me. And I
Hmm.
grew tremendously. Art journaled a bunch during it, all these images of closed doors, closed doors, closed doors. And then I like opened, had images of open doors. It's interesting symbolism in
Hmm.
the art journal, like encouraging us. So that was a little
Yeah.
bit my process, but I did it a bit backwards, but I really did start with 30 days just committing to writing and then taking a step back. And by then I was emotionally attached and my confidence was going up that I had something to say.
I think that's great. I think a lot of people, that's the hardest part. Like they know they want to write a book, but they don't know, they just don't know where to start. And I like that, how you did that. It was okay, I'm going to sit down every day and I'm just going to start getting it out. And then, and I think it's important during that time, kind of like what I was talking about with the morning pages, that you don't worry about, I mean, you might want to worry a little more about your spelling and things like that. But like when you're writing those first pages of your book, or like that first draft of your book, just do not worry about perfection. Just get it out, get the ideas out of your head, and then you can always refine it. You can, you know, reorganize, you can add to it, whatever. So I think that's really, really great advice for people who are in that stage of like, I think I want to write a book, but I don't know where to start. I don't know how to get this out.
Yeah.
Really great approach to that. So Susan, I will link to your book in the show notes for people. What else can, or how else can people find you? What is the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Sure. Best way to really get in touch is through my website. There's a contact me button, and that's just susan-hensley.com. The book's there, online training. There's like a video of exercises. So it's been, yeah, it's just been really fun to see and to be able to talk about something that you wanted to put forth. I mean, I really encourage with how relatively easy it is to create a book. I mean, the hard part is getting out of your own way right
Mm-hmm.
now,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I love the way you summarized the you cannot have that internal editor going in the first drafts. Like really bad first drafts are how I'm convinced you get there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Susan. It was great to learn about your book. And like I said, I definitely want to check it out and give it a try. And then I'll have to report back to you because I really have been looking for the right approach. So maybe this will be it for me. So thank you again. Thanks for coming
Oh,
on.
thank you, Kelly. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks.
For a community of women writers to support and inspire you on your journey, join the Author Power Circle. Connect weekly with fellow authors, stay accountable, and move your book forward in an encouraging community. Learn more at kellyshuckneck.com.